Hey everybody, this is Tom Duff with Mental Health Matters of St. Louis Counseling. Check our services out at stlouiscounseling.org. And here on Mental Health Matters, we always have entertaining guests to help us break down stigma around mental health and make sure everyone realizes that mental health is everywhere and everyone has mental health just like they have physical health. And so today I'm really excited because we have on Khalia Collier with the St. Louis Surge. And Khalia, well, first of all, professional women's basketball team here in St. Louis,
Yes.
two-time
national champs.
Two-time national champion. So we got a lot to talk about, but I think we're going to go off on a lot of different, there's so much to talk about, right? So anyway, thank you for joining us today. And I'm excited to kind of explore who you are a little bit.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
All right. So first of all, tell us about the Surge. All right. Two-time national champion here in St. Louis. Where do you play? Tell us a little bit.
Absolutely. So the St. Louis Surge is our very own women's professional basketball team. As you said, we have 2 rings to represent our 2-time national champs. We play at WashU. This would have been our 9th season. So we've had some time to build some additional momentum for 2021, which will be our 10th season milestone. What's pretty incredible, a lot of people don't know about the Surge, is that all of our players are postgraduates. On average, half of our players have master's degrees. So not only are we really good, we're really smart.
Like a triple threat.
Yeah, we're literally a triple threat. But we're gearing up. You know, it's definitely been a roller coaster, but we're ready for what 2021 looks like. And the fact that we recruit character first without sacrificing talent has really sustained us in continuing to build our brand and build and grow the Surge.
You know, and you guys have such a following. Like you have packed games, right? But I still think you're one of the best kept secrets of St. Louis.
We are. You know, when people finally find out about the Surge, you know, the fact that we're drawing 2,000 to 3,000 fans, we average 104 points a ball game. We've gained tremendous local and national sponsors. There's still a lot of building and growth, especially being a women's franchise in a market to where we've really built a name for ourselves now with the Blues and the Cards and now the St. Louis City SC.
Yeah, right there with all of them. So let's go back a little bit. You're the owner and the general manager, right? So first of all, grew up playing basketball, right?
Yep.
Realized that's a passion, making a career out of it. But so this entrepreneur as well, when you think of it from that angle. So how did that come about in regards to realizing like, I'm going to own a team and I'm going to do it?
Taking a really crazy leap of faith. In May of 2011, 23, I become one of the youngest franchise owners in the country. And I literally did just that. It was, you know, an opportunity to create something that I know I never had the chance to see here in St. Louis. And really, the St. Louis market has been so untapped. We're a major sports city. Basketball gets incredible ratings. And why not trailblaze and build a women's team right here in our own backyard?
So that's got to be stressful, right? You said the youngest, right, owner?
Yeah.
And then female, right, in a world sometimes where male dominated, also a person of color, correct, as well, too. So how have you been able to manage some of those stressors that, you know, just starting any business, owning anything is already challenging. But then you have a couple of other obstacles because of the way society is, so to speak. How do you keep your head up? How do you continue that drive?
You know, I think a combination of it is keeping tunnel vision on what my goals are, what drives me, my passion, our focus being the community with the byproduct of us continuing to win games. And I think that's been the difference of the Surge when you look at our total impact of we exist in order to make community impact, and a byproduct is we win games. And so for me personally, that's been very important for me to maintain and keep that level of focus throughout my day-to-day. And then surrounding myself with a network of supporters, friends, family that also have my best interests at heart, that I can confide in, that I can get advice, that they can tell me the real even when I don't want to hear it. And it's a multitude of like really focusing on your mental and physical health that I think has been a collaborative approach for me of, you know, having a support system, making sure that I'm staying physically fit and active and practicing mindfulness. And then recently I've really embarked on a journey this past year of focusing on my physical mental health. And I call it my mental fitness of actually getting a therapist and being able to talk through those things in a high pressure environment.
Awesome. Because, as we always try to weave in here, mental health is everywhere, right?
And everyone has it.
Everyone has it.
And you want to have it.
Yes, exactly. Good mental health, good
Yes.
mental hygiene as well is what we hear. So, you like I said, there's so many different angles. Sometimes I'm just going to jump around and stuff because I've got so many questions. So, as an athlete, a lot of times I think as fans we watch, and we say like, man, they're so talented. They have so much skill and just the stature, right? But the mental side of athletics is something that, I think it's being talked about more and more. But how, from playing and then in your role now, how do you help players or yourself keep that mental edge, so to speak? Because that's a drain, right? The ups and downs.
But it's a chess game. And that's something that when you look at the strategy of anticipating what's next, really building and preparing yourself for not just the next move, but thinking 2, 3, 4, 5 moves down the line. And typically that's either months or years or whatever your forecast looks like in terms of your trajectory. And I think that's what we do best with our players, is that we put them in the best situation to be successful on and off the court. So the combination is the given, right? The strength and conditioning, our coaches, making sure they have a development plan to continue to grow, get stronger, all of the things that's a necessity to be a professional athlete. But then we couple that with everything we do off the court. Making sure our players are building to a 750 credit score, making sure they're going through home ownership, because at some point we want to make sure that you're buying a home, making sure that you understand money management to where your finances are so key of what's going to continue this trajectory of success post being a pro athlete. And we know the disparities in salaries between women and men. So there's this real need to focus on women being understanding their financial literacy at an even deeper level, because that's what really changes communities. And particularly we've seen it most, like we contribute to households and our economy in ways that are often way overlooked.
Yeah, and you think about how important the role of, mom is, or the mom figure is, and how important that is in our society, and yet we've never had a female president before in that sense. So hopefully as we progress, into this election as well too, we've seen a female vice president candidate that will potentially, who knows what could happen.
I'm going to call it. We're going to have our first woman who is a VP heading the greatest country.
Yeah.
And I've been very vocal in terms of where I found my voice, but Kamala Harris is incredible. And I really feel like this is the year of the black woman. So we're going to roll with that, and we're going to keep that momentum going.
And that's something that's important, as you were mentioning with the team as well, too, to have a voice, right? So within the community, how are you guys trying to, one, empower not only, those on the team, but also other community members? How are you guys active in the community?
I think what's awesome is that it's a given, right? If you don't naturally like kids, if you don't naturally like to volunteer, you won't find yourself on the search. So what our players are able to project when they meet kids, when they meet other women, when they meet young men, they're able to immediately provide an example and kind of show them what's possible. And I think that's what I love about seeing our players engage in the community. It's not just a photo op. It's not just signing autographs. You're getting to know kids. You're wanting to know what their dreams are. How do they want to become successful? How can we help them along that journey? And I feel like I've played a personal role in that, just in my journey of having other people pour and invest in me, and it's our job to pay that forward. Because, so if I can pick your brain a little bit even more, right? So what does that do for you, knowing, so when you talk about mental health and the ability to just revitalize and stuff, so when you're helping someone else better themselves, how does that impact your own well-being and your own mental health? And it's everything. It drives your passion. It drives the fuel that I need to continue to succeed, is being able to pour into others. And I think the same goes for our players and our staff too. It's ultimately about making sure that you're part of the greater good, especially with community impact and making a positive impact, right? And I think that's where, particularly here in St. Louis, every day I feel like we're positively impacting our community for the better. And we've continued to do that. We created our own version of game day with our St. Louis Surge Community Day a few weeks ago, which was awesome. Being able to not only help kids with free sporting equipment and PPE supplies, but it was really showing them this alternative of variations of success. That's showing them that people are still cheering for you, we're still championing behind you, and we want to ensure that your physical activity is going to keep your mental health in a great space too. And starting to create those habits early only helps you lead a very long, healthy life.
Awesome. Yeah, those early interventions are so key in really lifelong success, like you're saying.
Right.
So COVID, right, and sports. So we know nationally there's been an impact, right?
Yeah.
So for you guys, what have you done to keep moving forward, and how have you guys been impacted?
We have literally taken Out Here Surge into a whole nother level and really tried to, almost reposition the word surge, because we've seen it so negatively in terms of how we've been trending. And when I look at the word surge, is how are we making a positive impact? So we've really taken that in and taken it to heart with what we've done with our St. Louis Surge Community Impact Fund that's housed at the St. Louis Community Foundation, of really focusing on youth, focusing on women, focusing on empowering women in entrepreneurship. We've done a tremendous amount of just mentoring. We created a virtual program within the Rockwood School District with VIC students, with elementary and middle school girls, of actually giving them the opportunity to interact with our players and see what's possible and really provide role models at a different level. And I think that's what's cool. It's like when students see me, it's like, all right, you're owner and GM. But the question is like, did I hoop? Can I dunk? There's still this cool factor of being a professional athlete, but it's awesome for the students that immediately identify, oh, you're an entrepreneur. What does it mean to own a team? What does that front office look like? And then you get to share with them all the different facets of business operations that they may or may not know existed.
And so then, with COVID, the impact going forward for you guys, you're planning on 2021, as you said, right? Just because this is the world we're in. From a player wise, how do you keep players motivated? Like, hey, we're going to get through this. How do you keep them online to understand we're still going to be here and we're still going to be present from a just athletic standpoint?
Tom, it's crazy. I remember my first Zoom call with our entire staff and players. That was, the very end of March, of really looking at, when we started to see how this was going to shape out. And the first, it started with me as a leader, letting my team, my coaches, our staff know that we're in this for the long haul. Things are going to have to be adjusted. We're going to have to modify contracts, but we're going to continue to move forward and make sure that we continue building a brand that's invested in St. Louis and in our community. And then it followed by our coaches, making sure that we've, created a plan for our players every week. We've created strength and conditioning program to ensure that they're staying in shape once the gyms reopened with Given 100. We've maintained contact in terms of what are they doing in the community to keep themselves in a great position, but also providing, different alternatives. COVID it's been a beast, and I feel like it's been a part of our job and a part of our civic duty to ensure that our community is, keeping safety and health top of mind. Surge masks started with that. We have some Surge hand sanitizer, especially within the Black community, of making sure that, we're taking all necessary precautions of ensuring that we stay safe and healthy, but also encouraging everyone else, our fellow neighbors. Like when we talk about 314 together, that includes everyone. And I think that's where we've really kind of shown up and shown out. And I think that's where when people know the talent of Surge, but you look at the character of Surge. And that's what I'm proud of.
Yeah, I mean I think that's the other probably best kept secret as well too. It's like the ability for the impact you guys are making on that community level. And when you look at the concepts of let's just hone down masks, let's just make sure people understand it's important to wear masks. For whatever reason you believe, it's still important, and it's just taking care of each other as well too. And I think we have a lot of times so much divisive, masks are political as well too. It's like, how
And
on
they're
earth can
not.
this political? How can they be political?
This is a great opportunity for everyone to actually show, if you want to talk about being patriotic, caring about, your fellow neighbor, caring about your community in a greater capacity than just focusing on yourself is a necessity of being a human being. And so we talk about living life by the golden rule. I want to make sure we're amplifying every positive message that we can.
So, born and raised here, right?
True St. Louisan.
True St. Louisan. You're a little younger than me, and a lot of times you hear people say, like, well, people are leaving St. Louis. They go to college and then they leave and they don't come back. And it's such a magnificent place to live too, right? So for you, why have you made St. Louis this focal point, and you decided to, hey, I'm going to own a team here. I'm going to make this happen. Why did you decide to stay?
Because I'm rooted. I'm invested, and I think I've definitely had other opportunities that I've considered on East Coast, West Coast, and just looking at changing demographics and a change of scenery. But at the end of the day, for me personally, I know I'm making a difference. We're bridging the community. The fact that we have the central location of WashU, and when you see the demographics that we draw at Surge games, no one's been able to accomplish that. We truly, blur these invisible lines that transcend zip codes. The fact that we're able to draw St. Louis City and town and country in one place and no one blinks an eye. The fact that people are seeing, and now when you're a Surge fan, you're bleeding green. And we're part of this positivity that's been needed in the city for a long time. And we want to keep that going, right? Because there's a tremendous amount of momentum. This is a great place to live. But it really requires everyone to do their part. It can't just be a great place for some that live here. And I'm dedicated to the commitment of ensuring that St. Louis is a great place that for everyone that lives here. Whether you're black, white, it doesn't matter. And I think that's where we start to get in a deeper conversation in terms of, the power of sport and how it unifies and how it brings excitement and so many other elements of these intangible skills that we even teach kids that we get to pour into our community.
And, as you were talking, that's what I was thinking about was sports and how, when you look at that, it brings so many people from different backgrounds together. And a lot of times, I don't think I shouldn't say it, but my opinion is, I don't think a lot of teams take the stance you guys are in being intentional with, like, hey, this is also a message that we are bringing people together. So the ability for a team to do that, I commend you on that, because like you said, it's more than almost the game is secondary, like you were saying. It's about the character and then the impact a team can have. And, and I know different teams do things in community, but to be intentionally saying those things is really important.
And that's the difference. Typically most franchises exist to put butts in seats, make money, and do some good along the way. And that's not why we exist, right? And so it's a different foundation of how we started with, in our mission, our vision, our values of what we wanted to make sure that we were consistently doing in the community. And I've seen a portion of that of even how St. Louis City SC is approaching coming into the St. Louis market, of being intentional, of making sure that when you have these decades and decades of history, when you invite people in and you invite them in with good intentions, when you welcome them with a smile, you bring a different level of comfortability that really gets people invested in a different capacity, right? Like anyone can rock team colors, but you want to know that you're supporting something in someone or an organization that actually means well.
How do you, so when we talk about impact, talk about change, it's easy. I know for myself, I get overwhelmed sometimes because it's like, you kind of hone down and then you're like, okay, if we can change this over here, it might work.
Away.
Yeah, chipping away. How do you keep your chin up with that?
I think it's coaching yourself every day. I have to remind myself constantly that Rome wasn't built overnight, and that it's brick by brick. It's one foot before the other, and I'm a huge fan of slow and steady. I don't need to sprint it's a marathon, and making sure that you do your part every day. I'm also slightly obsessed with being the best version of myself. So for those that know me and like my friends, they know all those cheesy tags and quotes are real for me. Because we have this, I think, we have this responsibility to ourselves to constantly improve. And that's something that I want to see, happen across our city. So if we're going to be here, that's the only way we're going to move.
Yeah, so why not make it better while
Right.
we're here, right? So then for you, having those supports, right? And so that mental wellness that we're talking about, having those supports, having the plan and sticking to it, really strong supporter of that, right? The mindfulness, knowing yourself. I'm a big proponent of emotional intelligence, and you're describing a lot of emotional intelligence as well too. How do you try to instill that when you guys are vetting players, right, and getting ready to bring players in? How do you realize, okay, you've got it. I like what you got there, but I'm going to try to instill that. How do you do that with people?
And I think it's starting with especially for recruits, right? I don't need you to be perfect, but we need you to be coachable. And they go through quite the process before you're actually ever officially on the surge. So every player goes through an extensive interview process. Every player goes through a full personality and professional assessment. We take that data, we pair it, and it's a process. But then it's also just being very honest and transparent. If you're just looking to hoop, if you only, are focusing on your stats, if, community is not important to you, then I don't really care how you can only help us on the court. It has to be a bigger picture. And I think, the players do a great job of almost kind of vetting each other when someone is not, on the team for the right reasons. And a couple of bad seeds, they make it through, but they never last. And I think that's the testament of real leadership, of bringing in people that, you can't always just have the smartest people in the room that don't play well in the sandbox, right? Like that's all team building. And I think that's one of my favorite parts about my job is really getting to build teams and play to one another's strengths. We all know what we're not good at, but focusing on the things we are good at is what builds a championship team.
So that asset-based thinking, looking at a person's strengths, pulling those out, and then all of a sudden, the stuff that may be their weakness or area that needs improvement isn't as big because all these strengths are on top of that.
And actually asking them, where do they want to see themselves in 3-5 years? And sometimes that's even just next year. But you have to create this pipeline of, it's a journey to where this isn't just my vision. I want you to play a significant role. You're going to be a key team member in whatever capacity you're a part of the surge, but you also have to have dreams of your own. And we have to be building and growing to something together.
Hardest part of being an owner?
Making tough decisions when, you got to let someone go. When someone's just not, I think the hardest part is when you see others' potentials that don't necessarily see it in themselves. And you just want to pour and you want to pour, but at some point it comes a point in time to where you got to cut the cord and say, this just isn't working out. And that's always, I never bring on someone a part of our organization to cut them. It's a lot of time, a lot of effort that's invested a part of that process. So I think that's probably the most challenging for me. That still gets hard.
You mentioned the term coachable as well too. So I kind of coach my daughter's team for the last 5 years. But she's going into 6th grade. So we started out 1st grade.
So what I'm hearing is I have a family of Surge fans then. Okay,
we've
right.
actually, we've been aware of you guys. We play out of the Parkway Rockwood Community Ed District,
Okay.
But when you talk about coachable, so one of the things, and I've realized about girls, right, is I had to get to a point where I'm like, okay, at the beginning of practice, let's just get all the talking out of the way. Like, you want to tell me a lot of stuff, just tell it to me, and then we can practice.
And then focus.
Very relational, which was so cool to hear. But when you talk coachable, like, what would you tell a group of 6th graders, right? How the importance of being a coachable kid. Or maybe you should be talking to the parents. I don't know.
It's both, Tom. It's both. But for kids particularly, it's giving them the space to be able to fail, giving them the space to be able to make mistakes, but also like stressing the importance, not just sportsmanship. I really pivot back to character, right? Of what kind of teammate do you want to be? And so how would your teammates describe you? And then a part of that process, especially for kids, is giving them the confidence that like anything is possible. It's very easy especially when you tell a young girl that don't shoot the ball, they take it literally. They will not shoot. Guard that person only. They will not move from that position.
Okay, so that's normal. Good.
Giving this space of, really being able to grow, and it's a tremendous amount of patience, right? But it's kind of cool when you see, especially young kids when they couldn't make, one bucket, one layup, one free throw, and then they do it. And it's like, wow, and then they do it again. Like, that's the excitement, especially for kids. And I think for girls in particular, we see this significant drop off for young girls really around that 6th, 7th, 8th grade to where they retire from the sport. And there's multiple reasons, but it all comes back down to confidence and support. And being able to create an environment that's not compared against your male counterparts, or like that. That's probably also one of my biggest pet peeves, is comparing men to women's sports. It's apples to oranges, and so for me, building a women's franchise, we're not men. So we're going to play to our strengths, and we're going to continue to do what's best, and hopefully along the way ensure that we're instilling that in young girls, because they see a whole nother variation of success when they see us. Young boys are in awe on their own. They're like, oh my gosh, they're so good, and they're standing getting autographs just the same as our little girls, along with adults. But we're also breaking stereotypes.
Yes.
Right out the gate. Because I meet way too many grown men that have never watched women's professional sports.
Yep. Totally. And growing up, it was kind of like it was always secondary. You know what I mean? Like women's sports were always secondary when I was growing up. And then, of course, part of that is because of TV and things of that nature, right? But then it's like watching it, when all of a sudden ESPN and other networks would start covering, aspects of women's sports. You're like, oh, my gosh. How is this any different, You
also start remembering that you don't need someone else's validation. And I think there's always this stamp of approval of like, the surge will be good when ESPN recognizes us. No, we're really good now. And then ESPN will discover us and be like, wow, they've been really good. And that's that level of, I'm not waiting for anyone else to validate our worth, to tell us that we're enough, to tell me that, you're a really good leader. I know those things. We're going to continue our course and our trajectory. And I think that's the same thing that, all women, when you talk about women's empowerment, you don't have to wait on someone else to tell you how great you are. And I think it's just feeling that and then like believing it and then reminding yourself every day along the way.
Well, and you mentioned like with the girls going in the 6th, 7th, and my daughter's going to 6th grade. And there was like almost this unspoken like thing like, oh, this will probably be the last year because everyone will go the different ways and they'll like different ways of doing things, and you have to focus on different sports and stuff like that. And then my daughter, she's like, I don't know if I'll play anymore. And I'm like, well, are you having fun? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, could you stop smiling when you rebound at me? But but it's like that. I mean, when you said that, it's like you see a drop off at that, and it's almost like this unspoken way of like, that's just, I don't know what the pressures are and stuff, but it makes me think about like, no matter how
I could rattle off a million stats, but I won't deter us from our conversation.
I don't know, like what's a couple stats? I don't know, just throw a couple.
A huge portion of that is girls start to develop. We have this drop off that's really not talked about in terms of girls maturing and starting their menstrual cycles. And when it's uncomfortable, the switch into sports bras and spandex and things we don't talk about that creates this separator of, confidence. And then you have, well, am I actually going to be able to make real money? Is it a real career in this? Am I good enough? So there's so many different components as to why you see young girls drop off, but a lot of it is really the support system and the encouragement of just, hey, if you're having fun, keep playing the game.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting you to be a pro athlete. You don't even have to play D1 ball, but you staying active and having that camaraderie and being a part of a team, you don't just get to recreate it when you're 30 and 40 years old. So do it now.
Yeah. That's awesome advice.
Yeah.
Man, if it wasn't for COVID, we'd be practicing right now, girls. But no, that's really good advice. No,
Thanks.
that's interesting because you can see some of the impact, and you look at boys, because I have an older son too, and then some of the pressures that come with them have been different than with her, what I'm seeing. But it's interesting to be able to keep that cohesion together, that concept of team, because that's something, no matter what you do in life, that's why I'm such a proponent of sports as well too. It's like that concept of team works everywhere, because you have to be a team player no matter where you're working.
Yep.
Right.
The same thing. Everyone's in sales. I love when people are like, I hate sales. I don't sell anything. Well, everyone's in sales in some aspect. And I hope that if you're going to any interview, even if you're looking to own your own business, you're building a team, you're creating and building relationships with vendors and partners. There's always some aspect of teaming that you can't get away from. So the best thing that you can learn how to do now is communicate and learn how to get along with people, even when you have differences.
And then, all of those aspects right there, when we talk about sound mental health, communication, getting along with people, those are things that drives people bonkers at work, right? Because they're like, I just can't stand working with this person. And, when you think about that, being able to effectively communicate goes so long with mediation and negotiating, and then also just a better life in general.
It does. It's funny. We talk about like ruminating and thinking about so many things before you've ever had a conversation. And that's something I've really tasked myself with as a leader, is being more direct. Not beating around the bush, saying, 10 things, but the thing I really need to say. And I think that goes back to mental health, though. And that's something I really wanted to touch on in terms of people having this stigma around, taking care of your mental health. Go to therapy. Trust the professionals no differently than you go and you see a trainer and, you want to get lean, you want to get buff, you want to get in shape. You're going to reach out to a coach or a therapist or a trainer. You want to do that same for your mental health. And I think that's truly, I wish I would have done it sooner in terms of, this past year has been kind of game changing for me. In terms of being able, and you also think about there's different levels to it, right? So there's some people, there's like, well, my problems aren't that bad. But we all have some problems, and we all have some level of degree of trauma, and there's so many things that are incorporated in our day-to-day lives that we kind of just push under the rug. And so I just, we talk about make mental health cool.
Yeah.
That is the space of just being able to be open, honest, and vulnerable.
And if the Surge can make that cool, that would be great.
we slide it in there actually now. That's actually another one of my favorite things about Surge game days is that, we have voter registration. We are a national partner for the U.S. Census Bureau of ensuring that we're getting the funding that we need for our region. And even for Community Day, we had mental health professionals that were there on site doing anxiety screenings.
Beautiful.
Same with Fit Food Connections, ensuring that you have a healthy balance, and St. Louis Juice Press, and then the collective STL of doing mindful yoga and, centering yourself in this space. And so there's so many components of what it means to be healthy. And so I want to always take and approach it from a holistic approach.
Yeah, because so often with, like you mentioned, you go to a trainer. Okay, I'm going to go to a trainer for 30 days. I'm going to be doing a lot of curls, and then I'm going to be able to see it.
And then fit forever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true, too. Yeah. Oh, this was great. Yeah, I'm good for a while. And then 2 weeks later, I'm like, where'd that go? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you can see a difference, in 30 days. And that's something with mental health. It's hard to like visually see a difference. So you have to experience it. And I think so often it's realizing it's the same thing. Going to a trainer, going to your doctor, going to a therapist to talk out some stuff. And a lot of times, we find a lot of people are more willing. They don't want to tell their. So you love, your significant other, you love your best friend and all that, but you don't always tell them everything, and sometimes you don't want to tell them everything.
Having a non-biased person that isn't judging you, isn't thinking about judging you, and it's just their job, no better space than be able to confide and kind of sort through your own thoughts.
Exactly. So for you, someone who's experienced that, it works, right?
It works.
It works.
But you have to do the work. Is it hard? Is it tough? Do you have some things that you didn't really want to turn over in the soil that you really wanted to leave the past in the past? But one of my best friends said to really put in, substantial work in that journey is a minimum of 21 sessions. And then we talk about like the sales trajectory of like, you need to have frequency of at least 7 times of making contact. And then you talk about what it takes to be an overnight success, and it's 7 to 10 years. A part of all those equations, nothing, a part of that says simple. It says easy. It's all the cliche things that talk about work and putting in that work and staying consistent and staying dedicated and all the things we know it takes to be successful. Why would we approach it any differently with our mental health?
Amen to that. Amen. So, Khalia, we have been here talking about the surge, talking about, well, we've talked a lot of stuff, right? Society, everything. So I guess what's one thing you want people to know about the surge? And then what's one thing you would encourage people from a mental health perspective? And then one thing from society. What do you want to see?
Oh, that's heavy, Tom.
Yeah, I know.
One thing for surge, don't support us because we're women. Support us because we're really good, because it's an experience, because we offer and we put on a great product, and you're supporting us being in the community for the long haul too. And I think that's my ask of anyone who's like, all right, I'm going to follow the surge, be a season ticket holder, buy a game day ticket, buy a T-shirt, just rep the brand, support us. Personally, along this journey, if you're thinking about therapy, find someone that's a good fit for you. Have a couple, 2, 3, 4 consultations if you need it, but make that commitment to yourself. You'll be glad that you did. It is an investment, is how I see it, and it is your mental fitness. So, put in that work. And from society, lead with the golden rule. Treat others how you want to be treated, respect people, do good, and smile. It's free. I think we miss this human decency that we've been missing for quite some time, for people that just, lead with a moral compass.
Beautiful. All right. We're going to end with that, with a moral compass. I like that. So, Khalia, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a pleasure meeting you and picking your brain. Thanks.
Thanks for having me, Tom. This was fun.
Awesome.
It was really
then
fun.
We're going to have you back again. So this has been Tom Duff of Mental Health Matters. Check us out at stlouiscounseling.org. And as always, break down stigma and make mental health okay to talk about anywhere. Until next time, see you later.
This has been Mental Health Matters with Tom Duff of St. Louis Counseling Services. Check out stlouiscounseling.org for more information.